in the meantime, then, be prepared for a conversation that I think will be true to life, and it'll also be inspirational, I hope. It's regarding Charlie, who's a mum of 3 from Stroud. Her life, by her own admission, turned upside down just over a year ago. But you know what? She's hoping that her own experiences will help other parents going through a crisis with their children. Charlie Mitchell took her youngest son, who has Down syndrome, to A&E in Gloucester, only to find that he had leukemia. Now, they were transferred to Bristol Children's Hospital for treatment. So much to deal with just in that. And there they stayed for the next 3 months. No visitors allowed because of COVID restrictions. Not able to see her other 2 children. Charlie, you could have understood, felt probably like, crawling into a corner. But no, she didn't. Instead, she put pen to paper and a healing story emerged. And now she's sharing her story and launching a support platform for other parents with children who have health issues or disabilities or sensory differences. And it's lovely to say she's in the studio with me. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
It's lovely to speak to you. And in person, you're only my, I think, a second guest that I've been able to have in 2 years in the studio. So welcome and make yourself at home.
What a privilege, thank you.
We've got the wet wipes, got it all going on. It's glamorous as. Gosh, I don't know where to start, really. So what was life like before, obviously, this crisis point? What was life like? You're a busy mum of 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 3 incredible children who I love dearly. They're all very different and all very, very lively. So life was busy, but we had a lovely time. My youngest was at nursery, and my other 2 were at school. I was working. I was supporting other parents that have children that experience the world differently. So I was already doing that kind of work because my youngest has Down syndrome and my eldest has autism. So I've already got quite a lot of years of experience of children that behave differently. So yeah, life was really good. Yeah, lots of positives.
When was the point when you thought, hang on a minute, something's not right, with my child? Something is not right here.
Well, it'd actually been about 2 weeks before that I'd taken him to A&E to begin with, and he'd basically had a lot of pain in his legs and he'd stopped walking, and they thought it was a trapped nerve or a pulled muscle. He was generally very well in himself, so we went home, and they said if he's not walking within 5 days, then bring him back. And actually he was walking again within 5 days, so we carried on life as normal. But then on that particular day, on the 4th of March, about 11 o'clock that night, we'd all had a usual day. I'd been working with clients, that he'd been at nursery, but he got very, very distressed. And when I went to look at him, I noticed on his neck he had a small patch that looked to me like blood that was bleeding under the skin. I phoned 111 and they basically said just take him straight to A&E. And within a couple of hours, we had the diagnosis of leukemia.
Good Lord. And it just comes out of left field, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
No warning at all that something like that could be on the cards.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, he'd literally had a brilliant day at nursery. He'd been at nursery all day.
How old was he at that point?
He was 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'd been very active, he'd been just playing. There was no reports of any difference at nursery during the day. He'd eaten really well, he'd been playing with his friends, he hadn't napped or, it just
Isn't this
was
children,
though,
isn't it interesting? Because children, unlike adults, they seem to be like they're either full on or they're completely, incapacitated, and the two can vary from hour to hour sometimes. I don't know how we keep up sometimes, it is... It's wonderful, but it's also terrifying because you can go from one to the other and back again in a matter of moments, can't you, if you're not careful?
Yeah, and to find out that we had to go straight to Bristol to get into the Children's Hospital for chemo to start straight away. He needed blood transfusions, he needed platelet transfusions. He was, at that point, he was incredibly unwell, and he was bleeding through his skin. That was the issue that had been identified because the leukemia was so rife through his body. So totally terrifying, and my life as I knew it completely stopped.
Upended. Yeah. So you had to sort out something for your other 2 children because you had to stay, and this was particularly because you obviously you needed to stay with your child, but also COVID restrictions, everything complicated, no visitors, so you were either in or you were out. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and there was no negotiation about it. It was simply you have to be with Thomas. There is no other option. So that was the decision. So unfortunately, when about 10 weeks after Thomas had been born, my youngest had been born, his dad had passed away. So I was in a situation where I didn't have another parent
No,
for him
obvious. No.
to kind of share that tag team with, which obviously lots of parents do. But my elder two children, their dad lived in York, so I literally got on the phone to him that morning and just said, I need you to come down. I need you to be with the other two children. And incredibly, that's exactly what he did. He literally came down straight away and stayed in the house so that the children could still go to school. They could still
some rhythm of
have
life.
some a rhythm of life and normality while Thomas and I were out of the equation.
No normality and no normal rhythm of life. So there you were, effectively in lockdown with your child as they were going through something horrendous, and you wanted to be there for them, but it also gives you a lot of time to be in your own head, doesn't it?
It really does.
Your face says yes.
It's not always helpful because we were in a room probably half the size of this room, with no opportunity to go out. There, I had to literally be with him 24 hours a day, unless a nurse was there so that I could nip to the loo, for instance. But yeah, so it was a very intense situation, and